A cold winter morning in 1847. A farmer wakes before dawn, walks to his barn, and finds his best milk cow lying on her side, too weak to stand. Her ribs are showing, her eyes are dull. Worms are killing her from the inside out. There's no veterinarian within 100 miles, no phone to call for help, no store to buy medicine. This cow represents everything: milk for his children, income for his family, survival through the coming winter. One wrong decision and his family could starve. What would you do? This wasn't a rare scenario. This was everyday reality for farmers before modern veterinary medicine existed. Every single day was a battle against an invisible enemy. Parasites lurked everywhere. Worms invaded the intestines of livestock. Diseases swept through herds without warning. Farmers faced these threats with nothing but their wits, their observations, and the plants growing in their own backyards. Imagine living in a world with no vet clinics on every corner, no antibiotics sitting on pharmacy shelves, no over-the-counter dewormers you could grab at the feed store, no internet to search for answers, no veterinary hotlines, nothing. Just you, your animals, and nature. The responsibility was crushing. Every illness could mean financial ruin. A sick cow meant no milk. A dying goat meant no income. A diseased flock of chickens meant no eggs, no meat, no hope. Sometimes it wasn't just about money, it was about pure survival. These animals were family, they were partners, they were life itself. But here's what's absolutely remarkable. These farmers didn't just survive, they thrived. They developed an arsenal of natural remedies so effective that modern science is only now beginning to understand their power. And they did it all through careful observation, tireless experimentation, and knowledge passed down through generations like precious gold. Let me take you back to how this knowledge was preserved. There were no veterinary schools teaching courses, no textbooks to reference. Instead, knowledge flowed from father to son as they worked side by side in the fields, from mother to daughter as they tended sick animals together in the barn. Around dinner tables, families shared what worked and what didn't. Old Miller's recipe saved our bull last spring. My grandmother always said to use neem when the goats got listless. The blacksmith's wife knows a remedy for worms that never fails. Every herb had a story. Every leaf had a purpose. Every seed, every piece of bark, every root, they all held secrets that had been tested not in laboratories, but in the harsh reality of farm life, where failure meant death and success meant survival. This wasn't folklore or superstition. This was science born from necessity, refined through decades of trial and error, and proven through results you could see with your own eyes. These farmers became extraordinary observers of life. They noticed things that most people would miss. They watched animals grazing and saw that livestock who ate near certain plants rarely got sick. They observed that when chickens pecked at specific seeds, worm problems decreased. They noticed that after drinking water boiled with certain leaves, cattle grew stronger and healthier. They didn't have microscopes to see parasites, but they could see the effects: the weight loss, the dull coats, the weakness, the death. And when they found something that worked, they wrote it down. Not in medical journals, but in worn family notebooks, passed down recipes, and sometimes simple farm parchments that became treasured heirlooms. These humble records formed the foundation of a natural pharmacy more powerful than most people today could imagine. Now let me tell you what they were fighting against, because you need to understand the stakes. Parasites weren't just inconvenient, they were killers, silent, relentless killers. A worm infestation would start slowly. An animal would lose appetite, then weight, then strength. Milk production would plummet. Diarrhea would drain whatever nutrition remained. Anemia would set in, turning vibrant animals into hollow shells. Pregnant animals would birth weak offspring that couldn't survive, and if you didn't act fast, the entire herd could be infected within weeks. Imagine watching helplessly as animal after animal weakened and died, knowing that your children depended on those animals for food. Imagine the desperation, the fear, the crushing weight of responsibility. This wasn't abstract. This was watching your livelihood, your family's future, literally wasting away before your eyes. Modern veterinary medicine was decades, sometimes centuries away from reaching most farms. Farmers had to innovate, they had to discover, they had to survive. And survive they did, using plants that most people today walk past without a second glance. Let me introduce you to their secret weapons, these plants that saved countless lives and sustained entire communities through the harshest times. Cloves. Yes, the same spice sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, but farmers discovered something that most people never knew. They noticed that when they fed small amounts of ground clove to their chickens and goats, intestinal worms practically disappeared. How did they figure this out? Observation, trial, error, success. They didn't know about eugenol, the compound in cloves with devastating anti-parasitic properties, but they didn't need to know the chemistry. They saw the results. One farm journal from 1873 documents how a farmer in Pennsylvania kept his entire goat herd parasite-free throughout a brutal winter by mixing clove powder into their feed. Not one animal was lost. The neighboring farms, who relied on hope and prayer alone, lost 30% of their herds. That's the difference knowledge makes. Then there was black seed, revered across cultures as the seed of blessing and the remedy for everything except death. Farmers treated it with almost religious respect, and for good reason. They crushed these tiny black seeds and sprinkled them into animal feed, sometimes mixing them with honey to make them more appetizing. What they observed was remarkable. Animals who ate black seed regularly didn't just fight off current infections, they seemed protected against future ones. Their immune systems grew stronger, worm infestations decreased, general health improved. Modern research now confirms what these farmers knew instinctively. Thymoquinone, a powerful compound in black seed, has profound antimicrobial and antiparasitic properties. But the farmers didn't need laboratories to tell them it worked. They saw it, they lived it, they passed it on. Neem was called the village pharmacy, and that name barely captures its power. This plant was a complete medical kit growing on a single tree. Farmers used every part: leaves, bark, seeds, oil. They discovered that neem worked against both internal parasites and external ones. Ticks that plagued cattle? Neem. Intestinal worms weakening goats? Neem. Skin conditions on horses? Neem. They would crush fresh leaves and mix them into drinking water, or dry them and grind them into powder for feed. The active compounds, azoractin and nimbin, were merciless against parasites. An elderly farmer in India once told researchers that his family had used the same neem recipe for 7 generations, and not once had they lost an animal to parasites. 7 generations. That's over 200 years of proven results. Black walnut hulls were the heavy artillery, especially for larger livestock. Farmers in North America discovered that the bitter, staining hulls of black walnuts could eliminate even the most stubborn intestinal worms. They would gather the hulls after harvest, crush them into powder, and carefully mix them into feed. The taste was so bitter that animals ate it slowly, but the results were undeniable. Cattle infested with worms would regain weight within weeks. Goats on the verge of death would recover. The settlers and farmers who used black walnut hulls had a saying, "Bitter medicine, sweet results." And then there were pumpkin seeds, perhaps the simplest and most elegant solution nature ever provided. Farmers noticed that animals who ate pumpkin seeds rarely had worm problems. Children would help by crushing the seeds and mixing them into feed. No fancy preparation needed, just raw, crushed pumpkin seeds. The compound cucurbitacin would paralyze the worms, and nature would do the rest, allowing them to pass harmlessly from the animal's system. Even today, modern homesteaders swear by this method. It's non-toxic, gentle, and it works. But here's what made these farmers true masters of their craft. They didn't just randomly throw herbs at sick animals. They observed carefully, they adjusted, they experimented, they kept records and shared knowledge. Let me share some real stories that illustrate this wisdom in action. In Vermont, there was a dairy farmer named Samuel. Every spring, like clockwork, his cows would start showing signs of parasitic infection, weight loss, reduced milk, weakness. For years, he lost animals every spring until an old-timer shared a secret: mix black walnut powder and clove together, feed it starting in early March, and the worms never get established. Samuel tried it. Not a single cow was lost that spring, or the next, or the one after. He used that remedy for 40 years and taught it to his children, who used it for 40 more.
In a small village in India, a family raised goats for generations. Every morning, without fail, the children would carry water mixed with neem leaf extract to the goat pen. This wasn't a chore, it was a ritual, a responsibility, a sacred trust passed from grandmother to mother to daughter. That family never lost a goat to parasites, not in living memory. When asked why they continued this practice, the grandmother simply said, "Because it works, because our goats are family, because this is how we survive." In rural France, during the harsh winters when chickens couldn't forage for natural foods, farmers would mix crushed pumpkin seeds and black seed into their feed. They discovered this prevented the deadly worm infestations that typically struck during winter confinement. This practice spread from farm to farm, village to village, saving countless flocks and ensuring families had eggs and meat through the coldest months. These weren't just stories. These were tested, proven, life-saving practices repeated successfully across centuries and continents. Now here's what's truly fascinating. Modern science is finally catching up. Researchers are validating what farmers knew all along. Clove's eugenol is now recognized as a powerful anti-parasitic agent. Black seed's thymoquinone is being extensively studied for its antimicrobial and anti-parasitic effects, with hundreds of research papers confirming its potency. Neem's pesticidal and medicinal properties are now widely researched and used in commercial products. Pumpkin seeds remain recommended by holistic veterinarians as a natural, safe dewormer. This proves something profound. Generations of careful observation and practical experience can produce results equal to and sometimes safer than modern synthetic drugs developed in laboratories. Those farmers were conducting real science. They were running experiments. They were gathering data. They were peer reviewing through community knowledge sharing. They just did it in barns instead of laboratories. So what happened? Why did this incredible knowledge fade? Industrialization changed everything. Suddenly, pharmaceutical companies could mass-produce treatments. Veterinary clinics opened in towns and cities. Treatment became easier, faster, more standardized. Small backyard farms shrank as industrial agriculture took over. The oral traditions that kept this knowledge alive were broken as families left farms for cities. The notebooks got lost, the recipes were forgotten, the wisdom faded like morning mist. But here's the beautiful thing. It's not gone. It's being rediscovered. Right now, across the world, backyard farmers and homesteaders are reclaiming this lost knowledge. They're using clove and pumpkin seeds instead of harsh chemical dewormers. They're protecting their pets from fleas and ticks with neem leaf sprays instead of toxic pesticides. They're maintaining animal health with black seed oil, reconnecting with centuries of wisdom. This is more than nostalgia. It's practical, sustainable, effective, safe. The principles these old farmers lived by remain just as relevant today. Observation is power. Nature provides solutions if you know where to look. Sustainability and health can coexist naturally. Prevention is better than cure. Respect for life guides every decision. Before veterinary clinics existed, farmers weren't just protecting animals, they were guarding life itself. Every leaf, every seed, every piece of bark was a tool in their constant battle against disease and death. These remedies represented more than medicine. They were expressions of love for the animals who sustained them. They were acts of devotion passed down through generations like sacred trusts. Today, as we rediscover these plants and their uses, we're doing more than finding natural alternatives to commercial products. We're reconnecting with a world that respected nature's wisdom, a world that valued observation over assumption, a world that understood that sustainable care isn't just better for animals, it's better for all of us. Clove, black seed, neem, black walnut, and pumpkin seeds are more than ingredients in a natural pharmacy. They're keys to centuries-old wisdom. They're proof that human ingenuity and careful observation can solve problems in ways that are safer, more sustainable, and truly timeless. These plants, once growing wild in backyards and fields, were the backbone of livestock health across the world. Those farmers understood plant cycles, their strengths, their subtle effects on animal well-being. They documented what worked and shared it freely, creating an unbroken chain of knowledge that allowed small farms to thrive even in the harshest conditions imaginable. When we look at these natural remedies today, we see more than medicine. We see centuries of human dedication. We see patience. We see the deep, unbreakable bond between humans and the animals that sustained them through times we can barely imagine. The story of natural dewormers isn't just about plants, it's about a philosophy, one that values observation, respect, and the sacred interconnection between humans, animals, and the earth. It teaches us that the most powerful solutions often lie in plain sight, waiting patiently for us to notice them. As we remember and apply these remedies, we honor the generations of farmers who, with no modern medicine, no safety nets, no backup plans, kept their animals healthy, their farms productive, and their families alive. We honor their courage, their wisdom, their love. This is the lost knowledge of the earth, waiting for us to remember it, practice it, and share it with future generations. It's waiting to ensure that the wisdom of the past continues to thrive alongside modern innovations, blending the best of both worlds to protect life, sustain health, and respect the natural world that provides everything we need, if only we're willing to see it.